There were 9 Dragon-type Pokemon introduced in the 7th generation, with 7 of them being considered competitive. Now here's the thing about the list. I don't include restricted Pokemon, which means if we take out Zygarde, none of these Pokemon really made much of an impact. And also the other 2 are just the Komodo pre-evolutions. So here's the thing about the top 10 Dragon-type Pokemon for the 7th generation. None of the Alolan Pokemon are on it, and that's kind of sad when you think about it, because Dragon-type, very powerful, very high power typing, and it just kind of fell apart, but there's still things to talk about, because there are changes to the list in comparison with some of the viable Pokemon now, and the meta, and just the shift in the 7th generation. Number 10 on the list is going to be Tyrantrum. So Tyrantrum is just good. We have Strong Jaw or we have Rockhead. Rockhead is just going to work for like Scarf, insane power. So what we do is we Choice Scarf it. We go high amounts of speed investment. We will need a Jolly Nature if we really want to secure outspeeds. But then 121 attack on something like the Head Smash is going to decimate a lot of opponents. Other than that, we can go for a Lumberry to prevent status, or maybe even find ourselves with something like the Focus Sash, Dragon Dance into the Strong Jaw. So I do have guides for all the Pokemon that I mentioned in my top 10 list, and the Tyrantrum guide just kind of goes over the Fang coverage that you're looking for and the Dragon Dance setup. But one thing that happened in the 7th generation with Tyrantrum is that there's this magical Bright Powder Double Team Tyrantrum that's running around the battle tree, and it has worked. So just take that into consideration as we go into number 9 on the list, Flygon. So Flygon is kind of like the only change on this list, and then maybe a little bit of shuffling around with the other Pokemon. But Flygon finally got some viability in the 7th generation, and that's with the introduction of Dragon Dance. Unfortunately, it kind of needed a little more. Like, once Flygon got Dragon Dance and we started using it in battles, it became a quick realization that it's not the most perfect Pokemon, because only 100 on the attack, even at +1, is not insane amounts of damage. Can run Adamant Nature, can go for high speed investment, because 100 speed works out. Then we get Stab Earthquake, so we find a little bit extra right here. Levitate does make it to where we do have some ground switching or ground safety in double battles, but that's kind of it. We go Earthquake, Dragon Claw, very standard, very limited movesets on the Flygon, and then Focus Sash, and that's it. So it is scary, like any Dragon Dance Pokemon, like anything that can stack damage like that, but it's just better. It's not an absurd, unstoppable Dragon-type Pokemon. It's just better, so it's going to be number 9 on the list. Number 8 on the list is going to be Haxorus. So much like in the last top 10, and that's because Mold Breaker is OP, and it has an absurd amount of damage, and still really good speed. And Haxorus, yeah, that's the thing, you can run Adamant Nature on this, you can give it a Lumberry, you can give it a Focus Sash, and then we just have another Dragon Dance Pokemon, but the damage adds up faster. +1 on a 147 attack with a Beneficial Nature will make the opponent just go away, go for the Dragon Claw, go for the Outrage. That's true of a lot of other Pokemon, like, alright, Dragon Claw, yeah, it's not a lot of damage, but Outrage, it can be kind of difficult to work with because that's going to lock you in, does have confusion, can be physically walled in some situations, or Fairy-type Pokemon will have the advantage against you, and that's the thing, we have Poison Jab not being an option on Flygon, but it is an option on the Haxorus. So, Poison Jab with all these stats, Fairy-type Pokemon don't really get to do too much to the Haxorus, then we can even find an Earthquake as well. So, a lot of stats, a lot of potential on the Haxorus. I do say that it is one of the stronger Dragon-type Pokemon out there. I don't understand why it's not getting as much play, that it has quick ramp up and then just a lot of damage. Thing is, Garchomp just has the stats and the bulk that with its base speed, it outspeeds 100 base speed Pokemon anyways, so if it Swords Dances, it does a lot. If it Scarfs, it can still turn around some big damage. But I do feel that Haxorus is in contention by being just behind the Garchomp. Number 7 on the list is going to be Hydreigon. So, don't really know what to say. Levitate, always a benefit just on any Pokemon when you get a free immunity. And as a Dark-type Pokemon, does have immunity to the Psychic. And it's not a Dragon Dance Pokemon, but it is a very high special attacking Pokemon. So with the 125 on the special attack and then 98 on speed, you have freedom to go Modest Scarf, or you have freedom to go Timid Specs, and then just destroy everything. it's also a pseudo-legendary, so you just go high hit point investment, and now your specs means you can survive potentially 2 hits. Like, you can be a 3-hit KO Pokemon with max hit point investment like this, and if you're specs, then you're going to be KOing the opponent more. Also, fantastic wall-breaking Pokemon on the Hydreigon, because its coverage is fantastic. You got Flamethrower, so that means Pokemon like the Ferrothorn, Pokemon like Scizor, Hydreigon gets to Flamethrower you. You get Draco Meteor, so mad amounts of damage. You also get Dark Pulse, so stab, extra coverage. Ghost-type Pokemon, they don't really get to do too much. And then after that, all you really need is just a nice Dragon Pulse to round it off, because if you don't want to use Draco Meteor, and Dragon Pulse will get the job done, you can use that. I don't think Hidden Power Ice is as necessary, because we're getting Stab Dragon to hit Dragon-type Pokemon, so big damage off of that. And then again, choice item, Hydreigon. It's ridiculous, and it's just reliable. We find in doubles, find in singles. Hydreigon is popular because it is that good. Number 6 on the list is going to be the Goodra. So here's the thing about Goodra. Could kind of tie with Hydreigon. Maybe people put Hydreigon below the Goodra. I just think that if you need a solid Pokemon on your team, 110 on that special attack while hitting super effectives all the time is going to be what you need. Also, it is one of the best special defense tanks out there. 90 on the hit points, 150 on special defense is absolutely nuts. You can run the Assault Vest and pretty much just shrug off anything special that the opponent is going for, and then you can return big damage back as well if you really want to run the Goodra that way. And that's also just kind of looking at what it can do. Has Gooey, so Gooey can lower the opponent's speed, which can let you catch up to them or bring in other Pokemon. That can work out pretty well. Hydration, Rain Dance, Rest is a Goodra option, so you can run it a bit more stally, but for the most part, it gets everything. If you want to run the Fire Blast, you can run the Fire Blast. That's going to be big damage for super effective hits. If you want to run the Ice Beam, you've got it. If you want to go for something like the Draco Meteor, sure, why not? And then if you're looking for something else on the Goodra, why not run the Thunderbolt? You know, that's going to be good against quite a lot of Pokemon out there. Goodra also finds access to the Sludge Wave, so a little bit more than the Sludge Bomb on the Sludge Wave and Fairy-type hits. You eat a Fairy-type move, doesn't matter if you're Assault Vested, with all these stats, with all these defenses, and then the Sludge Wave is going to do more damage back. So it's just a really good anchor Pokemon that a lot of people aren't really ready for Goodra to just hit the field. It's not going to sweep, it's not going to nuke out things immediately, but its coverage puts you in a good position against a lot of bulkier Pokemon, and also it just takes up special hits like nothing else. You're going to be surprised when a super effective hit onto the Goodra ends up doing like a quarter of its health. Those situations will happen with Goodra, and then you super effective the opponent back for a 2-hit KO. It's very nice, and I think Goodra can bring a lot of that. It opens up a lot of coverage options that your team may be lacking. Goodra just works. And then Draco Meteor, 110 special attack, Draco Meteor, big hits to soften up opponents, maybe following up that with another hit or super effective, can still find KOs, and then Goodra gets to come in, eat damage, throw out more damage. That's going to be it. Number 5 on the list is going to be both Latios and Latios. So I'm kind of doing the same thing I did on the original top 10 Dragon type video. Latios is stronger just for raw offenses. That this is a scary Pokemon when you realize it gets Ice Beam. What? Why? That seems a little overkill, especially when you can also go for Draco Meteor. Surf? Hidden Power Fire? Yeah, it does all those things. And that's really good coverage against a lot of Pokemon. 130 on the special attack, 110 on the speed. So outspeeding a lot. Kartana, just you outspeed Kartana, hit it with Hidden Power Fire. Dead. Draco Meteor. A neutral Life Orb Draco Meteor with a 130 special attack KOs almost anything. And if not, 2 Draco Meteors will do it. Latios is very good at hitting and running as well. It comes in, Draco Meteor, pieces out into a safe tank, comes back in, keeps those outspeeds, does crazy things. Good coverage, good damage, good stab. It does what it needs to. Latios, on the other hand, a little bit supportive, but also still pretty scary. That we have a 110 base speed Pokemon, you know, max out the speed, put a little bit of special investment, maybe a little bit of hit points, and it can use Calm Mind. Now, Latios also gets access to the Calm Mind, but Latios has a little bit more bulk. We have a 130 on the special defense instead of 130 on the special attack. So Calm Mind still going to find you very high amounts of damage, while also making you even tankier on that special defense, and then very hard to deal with, and then you can just kind of run dual stabs, or also kind of throw in whatever other moves you want. Calm Mind 3 offensive moves, Calm Mind 2 offensive moves and healing, or also you have the Healing Wish. So Healing Wish gives your sweeper another chance that you can Calm Mind, Draco Meteor on the Latios, find a KO, get some chip damage. If you get threatened enough to go down, that's when you can throw in the Healing Wish. So now, if there was a sweeper on your team that was burned, that was paralyzed, that was status, that was weakened in some way, Latios goes +2 or better very easily, or it can also just roost if it wants to stay in and try to mess with the opponent as well. You can find the coverage that works for it, and then you can put healing options, Citrus Berry, maybe a Confusion Berry. Latios is pretty solid, and then Latios is going to be more aggro if that's what you're looking for. Number 4 on the list is going to be Garchomp. So, Garchomp, it's always there, it's always strong. I don't really know what else there is to say about it. Dragon Ground with 130 on the attack, 102 speed. So it's a faster, harder hitting Flygon. So it's a faster, bulkier, harder hitting Flygon. Doesn't get access to Dragon Dance. Doesn't really matter because it can Swords Dance against a lot of tanks while retaining a lot of speed. Life Orb is crazy. Sometimes you'll find like a bulky Garchomp. You know, this is where it sucks. Rough Skin. A lot of moves end up making contact with the Garchomp to take it out, and just that little bit of extra damage could either open up a KO for the Garchomp, or also just makes it to where a tankier Pokemon, or just a sweeping Pokemon doesn't want to worry about these things. Garchomp makes them worry about it. Also, Garchomp gets the Poison Jab, so Fairy-type Pokemon, it doesn't get to worry as much. An Outrage from a Garchomp can be lights out. It also can Earthquake. It's really good in doubles, really good in singles. Sure, it's 4 times weak against Ice, but for the most part, Garchomp is going to see that coming, switch into something that'll tank it, and then just hard resist the ice, and then you're pretty good. So Garchomp can be played very safely and still run a high amount of damage and still just lock down entire opponent's teams. So pretty solid right there. Number 3 on the list, I still feel Noivern. I still feel Noivern is one of those really good Dragon-type Pokemon. Has the speed. It gets to outspeed Greninja. It gets to keep up with some of the best speed tiers out there, and 97 special attack, while it's not a lot, you do get a reliable choice specs on Noivern. You get really good amounts of coverage. You got Flamethrower. So Flamethrower and Dragons, not a big surprise, but it can do something like that. Has Air Slash, can Hurricane and Rain if it needs to, Boom Burst if it wants to combo for a lot of split damage, and then again we have Draco Meteor, so you can run all kinds of fun like that. Rain teams really benefit from Noivern. It does have decent bulk, 85, 80, 80, slightly above average for sweeping Pokemon, so it can survive some hits as well. Z moves also make Noivern a lot scarier too, because you can go for Dragonium Z. Dragonium Z, Draco Meteor. Then you Draco Meteor again, and you Draco Meteor again. So you can find 2 KOs while being very fast, and it's a really good late game Pokemon too. They bring in Noivern in the late game, and if you can just kind of lock something down and just keep hitting enough damage to find those KOs, or if your opponent can one-shot you in return, Noivern can kind of find its way back into a battle pretty quickly, and in doubles, it works. In Rain, it can find a lot of success as well. So it's just a rewarding Pokemon when you get to use it. Number 2 on the list is going to be Salamence. Oh, they buffed Salamence while also nerfing it, so it's just really weird. Salamence got a buff in that it gets its full 120 base speed on the turn that it Mega Evolves. This was like the only opportunity that you might have had to potentially possibly outplay the Salamence. That when it Mega Evolves, it has Dragon Dance. Now when it Mega Evolves, it can still go for an Aerial 8 boosted Double Edge. The only slight nerf that it took was it lost 0.1 times more damage on the Aerial 8 boosting. So Dragon Claw's still doing the same amount of damage, Earthquake's still doing the same amount of damage. Double Edge versus Return, I guess you run the Double Edge if you were already on the Return camp. So now it's like, it's a little bit easier to tanky stall out with like a full defensive Pokemon. That really doesn't say much. And it's always going to be very scary on Dragon Dance. You can run bulk mixes on the Salamence, it goes Roost, and that's kind of it. Now, it does fall behind to some other Pokemon, because like Focus Sash, a Life Orb on a different Pokemon can make the damage a bit more competitive with the nerfed Aerial 8 now. And also, it doesn't really matter how much speed you have. Like, once you start Dragon Dancing, you pretty much outspeed anything anyway, so it's pretty much Salamence versus others. But others versus not Salamence kind of finds the same potential of sweep and same amount of damage snowballing. So it's kind of in a weird place, but yeah, Salamence, ridiculously scary Pokemon. But I'm still going to keep number 1, Dragon-type Pokemon, even in 7th generation. I'm going to keep Dragonite here. Multi-scale, too good. We have Weakness Policy, too good. Even though it can have Lumberry. Oh, a Thunder Wave, oh, a Burn, that can maybe shut down the Dragonite. Like, Dragonite, really cheesy in the beginning with Weakness Policy, but now people know what to do. You hit a neutral hit, break the multi-scale because it wasn't getting KO'd anyways, and then you hit super effective, which means Weakness Policy doesn't have a chance to activate because it's already dead. But now we have Lumberry on Dragonite. So Lumberry means paralysis. No, that's just a free turn to Dragon Dance. Any kind of burn? No, that's just a free turn to Dragon Dance. And now we have a 134 attacking Pokemon that just uses its 80 speed to ramp up and then completely trash everything. Jolly Nature finds you really big outspeeds on that 80 base speed, and then you have whatever coverage you need. Extreme speed from the Dragonite. Very powerful. You can also find some other coverage options. You know, you just have to run the Outrage or the Dragon Claw. Plus one of either of those is going to be really big. If you already got your Dragon Dance, anything like that. And then you can find some other coverage moves. You can see things like the Earthquake. You can also use something like the Thunder Punch if you want to make sure that Water-type Pokemon can't resist you as much. So Dragon Dance, Thunder Punch, and then Toxapex now is something to worry about. Either way, Dragonite is very scary. Just the amount of Dragon Dance and the amount of safety that it has with that multi-scale into very high amounts of damage and kind of unpredictable coverage makes Dragonite the best Dragon Pokemon out there. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.